live from your drama-free true crime destination. This is Verdict Watch from BETHEA'S BYTE Reloaded. And a good Wednesday evening, Wednesday afternoon, wherever you are in this great country of ours. This is Verdict Watch from BETHEA'S BYTE Reloaded. I'm Ernest Bethea, the Last Outlaw, and just a few short hours ago, a Nevada jury came back with a verdict in the Investigative Reporter Murder Trial, Nevada versus Robert Telles. I'm going to take you into the courtroom right now for that verdict, and then following that, I will have the prosecutor's press conference. And right now, we are currently in another verdict watch. This is in a penalty phase. But first, the verdict in the Investigative Reporter Murder Trial.
I think Robert Telles looks a little uncomfortable as he waits to hear his fate.
All rise for entering verdict. Everyone, please be seated.
Does the state stipulate to the presence of the panel as well as the two alternates? Yes, Your Honor. Mr. Jaskowitz?
Yes, Your Honor.
Thank you. Juror number 2, have you been selected to be the foreperson?
Yes.
Has the jury reached a verdict?
Yes, we have, Your Honor.
Will you please hand the verdict form to Officer Hobbs? The defendant and his attorneys will stand for the reading of the verdict.
District Court, Clark County, Nevada, State of Nevada, Plaintiff versus Robert Telles, Defendant, case number C-368935, Department number 12, verdict. We, the jury in the above entitled case, find the defendant, Robert Telles, as follows. Murder with use of a deadly weapon, victim 60 years of age or older. Guilty of first-degree murder with use of a deadly weapon, victim 60 years of age or older. Special verdict. The jury unanimously finds the murder willful, deliberate, and premeditated. The jury unanimously finds the murder was committed by means of lying in wait. The jury unanimously finds the murder was committed by means of elder abuse. Guilty of first-degree murder with use of a deadly weapon. Special verdict. The jury unanimously finds the murder willful, deliberate, premeditated. Do you want me to finish this?
I'm just having the attorneys approach for just a moment.
Thank you, Judge.
Guilty of all of it, first-degree murder. Philip and Marie still with me. Philip, your response. I don't think this is unexpected based on the evidence.
No, not only did they find the first degree true, but they found the special circumstances of lying in wait, elder abuse, and that it was willful, deliberate, and premeditated. And I do believe that under Nevada law, it is a mandatory life sentence. I think for this jury, he came off as a moral menace, sort of like the decayed devil, the shriveled soul with manipulative morality on the stand. And now he has heard
Dated
his
this
jury
28th
speak.
day of August 2024, signed by foreperson, juror number 2. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, are these your verdicts as read? So say you one, so say you all.
Yes.
Okay, at this time, ladies and gentlemen, the clerk is going to ask you a question and just ask that you respond yes or no.
Juror number 1 is, are these your verdicts as read?
Yes.
Juror number 2, are these your verdicts as read? Yes. Juror number 3, are these your verdicts as read?
Yes.
Juror number 4, are these your verdicts as read?
Yes.
Juror number 5, are these your verdicts as read?
Yes.
Juror number 6, are these your verdicts as read?
Yes.
Juror number 7, are these your verdicts as read?
Yes.
Juror number 8, are these your verdicts as read?
Yes.
Juror number 9, are these your verdicts as read?
Yes.
Juror number 10, are these your verdicts as read?
Yes.
Juror number 11, are these your verdicts as read?
Yes.
Juror number 12, are these your verdicts as read?
Yes.
At this time, the clerk will record the verdict in the official record of the court. And at this time, ladies and gentlemen, as you know, pursuant to your verdict, we will now go into the penalty phase of the trial. We're going to take a break and allow the attorneys to get prepared for that penalty phase. So we will start again at 1:30. At this time, you'll all be able to be back together again. You're going to go with the court officer back to the jury deliberation room. And at 1:30, we will begin the penalty phase of this trial. Thank you very much, and you're excused.
Thank you, all right, your next jury. Jurors, please go ahead.
So there you have it. Former Las Vegas politician Robert Telles has been found guilty of first-degree murder in the death of Jeff Garman, for pretty much just doing his job as an investigative reporter. Now, I'm going to take you to the post-verdict press conference by the prosecuting attorney. And as I mentioned earlier, we are still in a verdict watch regarding the penalty phase. We are now closing in on 50 minutes that the jury is deliberating Robert Telles' fate. And I'll give you the ranges after this press conference.
I'd like to first start out by thanking the jury for their hard work and diligence in arriving certainly at the appropriate verdict. I'd like to acknowledge the family and friends of Jeff Garman. It's been a long, tough couple of years. But finally, justice has been served. I'd like to acknowledge the lawyers, and I'd like to acknowledge the lawyers actually on both sides. Mr. Draskovich and Mr. Harvath did a remarkable job on behalf of their client. But I'd like to further acknowledge the excellent work of my two prosecutors, Chief Deputy District Attorney Pam Weckerly and Christopher Hamner, who both did an outstanding job. Finally, today's verdict should send a message. And that message is a clear message that any attempts to silence the media or to silence or intimidate a journalist will not be tolerated. That's what occurred in this case. That's what occurred, and that's why today justice was served. So I'll take a few questions.
Could you address the wait? How long the deliberations took?
You know, juries do different things depending on the makeup of the jury, depending on the format. There was a lot of evidence in this case. There was a lot of video evidence. Some of their questions, they wanted an additional laptop. They wanted to look at some more of the video evidence. So I want to commend this jury. I think they took a lot of time to review this evidence. This is an important verdict. They gave the defendant in this case what he has a right to, which is an examination of that evidence. At the end of the day, the jury did the right thing and came back with first degree with use of a deadly weapon, first degree murder with use of a deadly weapon, and both enhancements. This crime was committed with the use of a deadly weapon, and this crime was committed against an elderly person.
The jury kind of was throwing a curveball in closing with the defense there, basically pointing out the silhouette of a different looking person than Robert Telles in the suspect's alleged vehicle there. How do you think that played into the big delay, or at least the length of time it took the jury to decide this? Because they had to go in the jury room and figure this out themselves.
Well, defense lawyers sometimes have to throw curveballs. That's their job. But I'll tell you, the jury hit the ball out of the park this time. They hit a home run by getting the right verdict.
Were you surprised by the length of the jury deliberation?
Yes, a little. To be candid, I think most everybody that followed this trial and watched this trial and was familiar with the evidence thought the verdict would come a little quicker. But again, there were over 400 exhibits. Many of these exhibits were video evidence. And I think the jury took their time and examined all of the evidence. That's what we want juries to do. We want them to look at all of the evidence. We want them to consider what the defense offers. But I'll say it again, at the end of the day, after looking at all the evidence, their verdict was clear and convincing.
Could you address him taking the stand, his defense?
Well, the defendant has a right to testify or choose not to testify. In this case, Mr. Telles chose to testify. He gave narrative testimony. I think that the jury listened carefully. I was in the courtroom for a number of hours during this trial, and I was watching the jury. I was watching how the jury reacted to the evidence. And I think they gave Mr. Telles the benefit of the doubt. They listened to him. But again, the jury verdict speaks for itself.
Do you think his decision to testify helped or hurt him?
You know, maybe that's what we'll ask the jury one day when this is all over.
Mr. Wolfson, what's the significance of testifying by narrative? Have you ever had a case where you've had a client, when you were a defense lawyer, testify by narrative?
It's certainly unusual. It is certainly rare. But sometimes, based upon the ethical rules that apply, a decision is made for a defendant to give a narrative.
What ethical rules might apply in a case like this?
I'm not going to speak to that at this point. You know, the case isn't over. We're going to a penalty hearing in about an hour. Certain witnesses will testify, and the jury still has another decision to render, and that's the decision of penalty.
What do you think is the appropriate penalty?
Well, they've got three options. They can come back with life without the possibility of parole, life with the possibility of parole after serving a minimum of 20 years, or a sentence of 50 years with minimum parole eligibility after 20 years. So the jury has options. I'm not going to invade the province of the jury at this time. I've got two excellent prosecutors that are going to present some information for the jury to consider. I'll respect whatever verdict, whatever sentence the jury comes back with.
Generally, in a case where you go to a penalty phase, what is it that a prosecutor is asking a jury to consider?
Well, during the guilt phase, they're asked to consider the evidence of guilt. You know, what evidence does the prosecution have to suggest that a crime was committed and that this accused person committed the crime? We're beyond that now. The jury came back with first-degree murder with use of a deadly weapon against an elderly person. So that there's a different consideration now. What is the appropriate punishment? So I'm sure that Mr. Draskovich and Mr. Horvath will present information on behalf of their own client. We will be presenting certain information that we want the jury to consider as well.
Forgive me if you answered this before I got here. What was behind the decision not to seek the death penalty in this case?
Well, there are certain cases that are appropriate for consideration of the death penalty and certain cases that aren't. a decision was reached that this was not an appropriate case to seek the death penalty.
I was asking why.
I'm not going to go into the analysis that went into that decision. I will tell you, in my 12 and a half years of being the district attorney, we have decided to file the death penalty in a number of cases, and we have decided not to file in a number of cases. Every case has its unique facts and circumstances, the background of the accused person, the gravity of the offense, the nature and circumstances. But a decision was made in this case not to seek the death penalty, but I'm confident that whatever sentence is rendered, that's a chunk of prison time that Mr. Telles will have to serve.
Can you explain how the deadly weapon enhancement and the lying in wait factor could affect the
I didn't hear you, Caitlin.
Can you explain how the deadly weapon enhancement and the lying in wait factor could affect the sentencing?
Well, the jury's going to consider all of the evidence. I mean, this was a crime, in our opinion, that was clearly premeditated. There was planning involved. It wasn't a decision in a couple of minutes or moments to kill Mr. Gehrman. There was planning involved. Lying in wait, I think the jury will consider that. The jury will, of course, consider that he brought a deadly weapon. So they will consider all of these things in their decision.
Did you know Jeff Gehrman personally, and what can you say on a personal level about his work?
I knew Jeff for probably close to 40 years. He had a stellar reputation in this community. He was a zealot. He was an excellent investigative reporter. I did work with Jeff over the years. It's a crying shame, literally and figuratively, that he's no longer with us.
Sir, Mr. Telles brought up a conspiracy theory that involved both private and public computers. Would you be willing to address some of the
I think they're ludicrous. There was no conspiracy. The only conspiracy was between him and his evil mind. All of the people that he accused of being part of a conspiracy had no role in any conspiracy, and I think the jury's verdict speaks directly to that. That's it. Thank you. Very good.
Okay, guys, that's that takes care of the press conference, and as you heard, the jury is still right now. The jury is still in this deliberation over the penalty phase here. They have three options according to the DA. They can recommend life without the possibility of parole. They can recommend life with the possibility of parole after 20 years, or they can opt for a 50-year imprisonment with the possibility of parole after 20. So three different options, and the only way I can see this going down, in my honest opinion, is a sentence of life without the possibility of parole, because like the evidence and like the district attorney and like the jury's verdict goes, this was planned. This was premeditated. And excuse me. Okay, there we go. And if you're gonna do all that to take somebody's life just simply for doing his job as an investigative reporter, like the saying goes, don't do the crime if you can't do the time or pay the fine. In this case, Robert Telles, doesn't matter if he was a politician right now. He was being investigated. He got nailed, or Jeff Gehrman, the investigative reporter, was getting a little too close, so he had to be silenced. That's exactly what went down in this case. And now Robert Telles is got to pay a heavy price for it. One thing that in my opinion really sunk his case was he got on the witness stand, ladies and gentlemen, and under cross, and I've said this plenty of times. Sometimes the best bet could be to take a plea deal, because the last thing you want to have happen to you is you getting cooked on cross-examination. Robert Telles was cooked on cross-examination with just one question: how did Jeff German's DNA end up under your fingernails? To which Telles answered on the witness stand, and I don't know, but I didn't do it. To which I myself, my wife, Lady Outlaw, geez, Medea could tell you this. Dana don't lie. Who's Dana? Dana, DNA. DNA will not lie. He took this man's life. There's no doubt about that. And that's why he stood trial and was eventually found guilty. Most of it said first degree murder with the use of a deadly weapon against an elderly person. In this case, Jeff German was 69 years of age when his life was cut. Right now, they're an hour and 5 minutes into deliberation, and I don't know whether we'll have the update as to whether they'll have the verdict as far as the penalty goes today, or I'll have to come back here tomorrow with it. But as of right now, an hour and 5 minutes, the jury's still deliberating as to whether they'll recommend a sentence of life without the possibility of parole, life with the possibility of parole after 20 years, or 50 years with a possibility of parole after 20. If we get the verdict on that, I'll come back. If not, I'll be back here tomorrow with that update. So to recap, Robert Telles, former Nevada Robert Telles, former politician in the state of Nevada, found guilty of first-degree murder in the death of investigative reporter Jeff German. I'll be back one way, either today or tomorrow, with an update as to whether the jury recommends any of those three options that I've mentioned. Till then, this is Ernest Bethea, the Last Outlaw. This has been Verdict Watch. You can follow me all over social media. Until then, thanks for joining me, and I'll be sure to update this. Until then, you know what to do. Like this. For more information on all you've seen here, be sure to follow BETHEA'S BYTE Reloaded all over social media. This has been Verdict Watch from BETHEA'S BYTE Reloaded.